Nicely done, Dan. Good job. And in most cases, that's going to be perfectly sufficient. But I'm going to show you a few tips to install your baseboards. You're going to get an even better finish than the way old Dan did it over here. What do you think? Should we show them how we install baseboards?
No!
Yeah, go on, it'll be fun. You show them your way and I'll show them mine. No? Dan's a professional contractor, so he knows how to install baseboards properly, which means, hang on Dan, which means that Dan knows that once your baseboard is cut to size, you're going to want to nail it to the wall to fasten the baseboard. Make sure that it stays secure on the wall. Nicely done, Dan. Now, Dan also knows the importance of finishing that top edge with a flexible sealant to finish that baseboard so that when he paints it, there's no black line, which also makes the baseboard stronger and it will prevent cracking in the future. Dan knows the importance of using good quality flexible sealants like this one from DAP. So Dan's using Alex Flex crown molding, which has a really nice elasticity. It's got great durability and it's also paintable in half an hour. So Dan is well aware that when you're applying caulking to a gap like that, you don't want to put too much on, just enough to seal the gap and get rid of that seam. It's also really important after you've applied the sealant to make sure it's firmly adhered to both surfaces by smoothing it out with a finger, a damp rag, or anything else that will help you tool that into a smooth finish. So Dan's got that caulking pretty smooth, but he's going to take another swipe to make sure he gets as much of that excess caulking out of that joint as possible so we don't have too much buildup, because then the painters won't be too happy with Dan, now will they? Looks like he's got the whole thing cleaned up and pretty nice install. Nicely done, Dan. Good job. So Dan's done a pretty good job, and in most cases, that's going to be perfectly sufficient. But that's not Refresh style. I'm going to show you a few tips to install your baseboards even cleaner. So if you're painting your wall and your trim two different colors, you're going to get an even better finish than the way old Dan did it over here. Why don't you pass me that equipment and I'm going to show you a few things. So right off the bat, it's important to note that there are lots of different types of caulking. This one, this Alex Flex crown molding, is going to be more than sufficient in almost every case. But it is important to know that if your wall is particularly wavy, it might benefit you to switch to a more flexible sealant. An extreme stretch like this has more elasticity and it allows it to span larger gaps without cracking over long periods of time. Another good tip, when you're cutting your caulking tube for the first time, what you want to do is you want to cut it on an angle, because as you're laying the caulking in, it allows you to lay that caulking on in a smoother, more consistent angle. So the first thing that I'm going to do differently than Dan did when I'm applying my baseboard is I'm also going to apply some adhesive to the back of the board. Now this provides a little more adhesion to the wall. In case this wall shifts, it will help avoid cracking significantly. So I'm going to run a nice healthy bead on the back of the entire baseboard, and that alone would probably hug this baseboard to the wall pretty sufficiently. So the second thing I'm going to do while I have the baseboard in this position is I'm going to run a healthy bead along the top edge of the baseboard on the inside. And the point of that is when I push this baseboard against the wall, by having the bead already behind the baseboard, I know that as it oozes out on top, that I have sealant behind, on top, and in front. So I know that that gap is completely sealed from every direction, which again helps from cracking later on down the road. So a nice healthy bead. So now that I have the caulking on the top edge and on the back, I can go ahead and put that baseboard up against the wall. And as I push into the wall, what you'll notice is the caulking oozing out from that back edge at the top. That's what we want. Now that that baseboard is nice and stuck to the wall, I'm going to go ahead and nail it. No. Rather than using a pin nailer or a 23 gauge, I'm going to use an 18 gauge nailer. Now this guy shoots a little bit thicker nails than a pinner does, so this will do a better job holding the baseboard to the wall. Also, I'm going to make sure that I'm hitting the studs. I'm not just aimlessly shooting pins into the wall. I'm going to go ahead and mark my studs ahead of time so that when I'm shooting nails, I know that I'm getting nail through the baseboard into the stud behind for extra holding power. So extra caulking, bigger nails, nails into studs. Make sense? What do you think, Dan? So I've got my stud marked out. I know that there's one here, and I also know that there's one here. So I'm going to shoot in those two places. If you're going to be putting another decorative molding on the bottom, like a shoe mold or a quarter round, shoot your first brad nail low enough that that next piece will cover it. Then you don't have to fill two sets of holes. The first one, nice and low, and then another one up at the top. Same thing over here. So yes, the nails are slightly larger, which means slightly larger holes, but you're filling pin nails, or at least you should be filling pin nails anyways. So you might as well fill a hole that's got a big, strong nail in it. That's my opinion, at least. No. So now we come to the smoothing portion, which we saw Dan do a couple of times. The benefit of having the caulking on beforehand is that now I know that caulking is all the way behind this baseboard. So I know that by smoothing it out, I'm not removing too much because there's the perfect amount tucked behind and in that seam. So what I can do is, rather than use my finger like Dan did, I'm going to use a trowel, because this is going to allow me to dig out more of the sealant, so more of the caulking than my finger would, because this is a 90-degree angle and this, it's round, it's a circle. It's not going to get as much of that caulking out as the trowel is. It leaves you with a nice sharp 90-degree edge where the baseboard meets the wall. Now this matters mainly if you're painting your walls and your baseboard a different color. So if the walls are gray or they're black or they're blue and the baseboard is white, having a rounded edge like Dan's got is going to make cutting that paint in on the baseboard a lot more difficult. You're more prone to get wavy lines because your brush can't ride an even groove. This way, I'm left with a 90-degree corner, super easy to cut, really clean, and if you have two different colors, it will stand out. I promise you that. This applies to any applied molding, not just baseboards, but if you put the sealant on first, you can take as much of that caulking off as you want, and you know that you've got a sufficient amount on there. You can see from this angle, look how much less of a rounded edge I have on my side than Dan has on his side. Dan's has a rounded radius, so he's left more sealant on the wall, which means when he goes to paint that, he's going to have a trickier time cutting this edge than I will with mine. This might seem overkill on a baseboard, but this applies to all applied moldings. So think around your door casing or around your window frames. This kind of thing can be the difference between a sloppy DIY job and a professional finish. Don't touch that with your finger. You don't need to. I've already got it out here. So there you go. Two ways to finish your baseboards. You can do it Dan's way, which is totally fine, or you can do it the refresh way, which is a notch above fine, which is better, which is what we try to do in every house, right? Oh, he's gone. He is gone. I gotta go take care of Dan. I think I hurt his feelings.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm going to show you how to install baseboards.
Hi, I'm Steve from Refresh, and I'm going to show you how to install baseboards the right way and the more right way, with or without Dan.